As I look outside my window today, I'm watching the fall leaves gently drip down to the grass. It's a perfect example of karma. Fall is one part of these trees' karma here in northern Illinois, and it started for these trees about 75 years ago. But in actuality, their karma started before the beginning of the universe. So, what is karma? Karma, quite simply, is action. Karma has three parts: the potential or thought, the action itself, and the ripples the action creates. The falling leaves are all three aspects of karma simultaneously: the future action it might inspire, the action itself, and the effect it actually has. Today, I'm going to focus on the first part of karma, the potential, or in the case of sentient beings, the thought that comes before an action. Or continuing with this metaphor, the potential action that a falling leaf might create. For example, breaking down and giving nutrients back to the tree, or inspiring me to rake them up. Karma is a funny word. Everyone will have a slightly different understanding of what it means. To some, it's paying for or reaping the rewards of past actions. For others, cosmic justice. For me, it's the natural ebb and flow of being a human being. The biggest challenge for most of us is wrapping our modern minds around ancient spiritual beliefs. How can we contemporize karma so we can understand it in the world which we live in? First off, let me start by saying the world is a very mysterious place. There are so many things we don't even realize we don't know that it's hard to truly identify the difference between truth and a metaphor. I believe many of our spiritual ideas are metaphors for things we can actually see, feel, hear, and experience. Science has started to measure it as well. Scientists are finding quite a bit of truth behind the cultural symbols. These symbols represent big concepts, which every culture explained in their own terms. In this discussion, I'm going to look at karma through a more modern and scientific metaphor and language. The first part of karma is thought. That thought may be conscious, subconscious, or unconscious. As many religions believe, action begins with a single thought. But where does that thought come from? How can two people have entirely different realities? We're all exposed to the same information. Why are we all so different? Many of our thoughts are passed down from our parents, and many of our potential thoughts are influenced by our biology. Our biology is influenced by our genes, our parents' dominant state of mind before and after conception, our environment before, during, and after birth, our first experiences of something, and how we're encouraged to interpret that experience. And the list goes on and on. Our interpretation and consequently creation of our reality is most heavily influenced by things that happen outside of our conscious state of mind. That may be why karma seems so mysterious. We haven't delved into the most mysterious part of the universe, our own self, to discover where our thoughts are coming from. How, you might ask, are our thoughts influenced by our biology? And how does our parents' state of mind before conception affect our current thoughts and ideas? I'll start with the mind. Our mind is designed to find meaning and patterns, even when the pattern is way too complex for our conscious thoughts to comprehend. Our mind is designed to fit every experience into a box, even if our reasoning is totally illogical and we have to completely ignore the obvious. We try to find a meaning box in which to put new information in. We have a set number of meaning boxes based on our beliefs, and until we challenge them, we are restricted by the boxes we picked up from our family and environment. The mind likes order and reason, and until we challenge everything we thought to be true, our mind hardens into set patterns that have very little to do with a larger reality. So, our biology. Here are a few ways our biology affects our thoughts. Whenever we have an emotion, which is not a mysterious otherworldly event, it's a brain chemical that inspires a cascade of physiological responses which we then interpret as an emotion. Well, our mind likes to make a meaning for our emotion based on the knowledge and meaning boxes available to us. Here's a great example. So, let's say we're fatigued, either because we haven't gotten enough sleep, we need to eat, or we're dehydrated. When that happens, we generally feel vulnerable. This vulnerability creates a desire to protect ourselves. We then either withdraw or put up defenses. Our mind, always looking for meaning, interprets our desire to protect ourselves not as a response to fatigue, but rather as a response to an external threat. A boss, a coworker, the government, our neighbor, etc. In that way, getting tired can lead to anger, accusations, and acting hostile, either internally or externally. In this situation, a nap, a healthy snack, or some water might set everything right again. But we don't correct the real problem, either because we're at work, or we don't know it exists, or we don't take it seriously. We end up pushing through it, thinking angrier and angrier thoughts as a way to protect ourselves because we're fatigued. Positive thinking, venting, or distracting ourselves can help, but underneath it, we're still fatigued. And that is the unrealized thought that will make the decisions. When we recognize we're fatigued, it's karmically more pleasant to address the underlying issue instead of creating unnecessary difficulties. If you learned early on what fatigue looks like, feels like, and how to handle it, your good karma or choices go up exponentially. But most of us didn't really learn that, so we put the fatigue into one of our meaning boxes, either anger, sadness, frustration, etc., and then looked for someone or something to blame. That's an easy example. A more complicated example is when we've had our hearts broken. When we fall in love, our bodies release a powerful euphoric chemical. We fall in love for so many reasons, both biological and psychological. However, once we've had our hearts broken, it hurts. We crash hard after our euphoric high, and our brain creates meaning and learns. We may believe we're unlovable, or that dark-haired men are dangerous. Those beliefs affect who we fall in love with next. We may keep falling in love with someone that reinforces that belief, because our brain likes patterns, or refuse to let ourselves be vulnerable with a potential partner, our way of protecting ourselves from pain. Either way, the associations we create from our heartbreak become physical connections in our brain. Our brain will look for, slant, and create past, present, and future experiences to strengthen that belief, making the connection stronger. even if we have to ignore logic and the obvious. These unexamined and unchanged beliefs can create our bad karma. So emotions are really physiological phenomena. The next question then is, what affects our emotional physiology? Lots of crazy things do. Nutrition, exercise, social interactions are the obvious ones. On a physical level, what we eat and do tells our body how to feel, what brain chemicals to make, and what brain chemicals to release. But also, our parents' state of mind affects us before we were even conceived. As I said earlier, emotions are brain chemicals that create a cascade of physiological effects. These chemicals affect us on a DNA level. They hook into and activate cell receptors, which tell your DNA which parts to express and which parts to suppress. Karma, on a DNA level, influenced by your state of mind and controlled by your beliefs. Since we started from little bits of our parents, their beliefs about life released brain chemicals. If they lived in a state of fear, for example, their sperm or egg would be altered. And if the mother is pregnant, the fetus would be altered. Constant exposure to a specific chemical, as with all drugs, will make us less sensitive to it on a biological level. A fetus doused with adrenaline over and over would be less sensitive to it and make them less respondent in the face of danger. On the flip side, when we don't need a cell receptor, it goes away. For example, if a fetus isn't exposed to the contentment brain chemical, they'll have a hard time ever feeling content as adults. Even if brain chemicals don't directly affect a fetus, the parents' beliefs affect their choices. Did they wait to have children when they were older, and so their eggs were older too? Did they drink or smoke? Did they choose or were able to get the nutrients for a growing baby? Parents' internal and external choices and experiences directly affect their children, even if we don't know how. Well, how does our environment affect us as we're growing up? Besides, once again, the obvious nutrition, exercise, social interaction, etc. Our brains are blank slates when we're children. Even before we do something, let's say walk, our brains are imprinting what we see. There's an old adage that the best way to learn is to watch a master. We imprint what we see on a multitude of levels. Our brain and body know if the people around us are happy or sad. Our brain senses the emotion and we empathize with it and associate the emotion with whatever was going on at the time. If our mother gets angry every time we cry, we will associate anger and crying. If we imprint that something's bad or negative, it becomes a brain connection. Our brains will look for more examples to validate and strengthen that connection. Which is why first experiences, even if they're only observed, are very powerful. We carry that belief, it shapes our subconscious and conscious decisions until we challenge it and keep our mind open to new possibilities. Our brain likes to find and create patterns and will defend our beliefs even in the face of unavoidable proof. We have to have a wide variety of experiences with a wide variety of outcomes when we're young to avoid closing our mind to other ideas. So our thoughts, which are influenced by a wide variety of subconscious and unconscious factors, inspire us to action or karma. Are we doomed? Or can we start to change our bad karma? Changing beliefs can happen in an instant. However, it usually takes years and years. We start on the path of wanting to change long before we actually do. It's that desire to change that gathers information and creates situations so when the brain connection is weakened enough, we can change our beliefs. The change happens when we desire to and allow ourselves to see, hear, imagine, or experience something different than what we believe. It works best when our guard is down, for example, when we're relaxed and spaced out, or when we listen to what an innocent child says. We also start to change our beliefs when change becomes more desirable than continuing to hold on to the pattern. For example, when someone hits bottom. If you really want to change your karma, you don't have to hit bottom or wait for divine intervention. You're changing it on a cellular and DNA level right now. Every experience and every bit of new information affects change. From a soul point of view, I believe we'll all get there eventually. However, there is a way to speed up the process. Whenever you question your reality, reflect on your beliefs, and stay open to new possibilities, you're headed towards positive and profound personal growth. The thing to remember is that, like the tree, growth is only part of the natural cycle of life, which also includes decay and death, as the leaves experience every fall. It doesn't really matter whether you grow fast or slow, straight or angled. There are benefits and drawbacks to both realities. Understanding karma is quite simply a step on the path to enlightenment, and enlightenment is simply knowing what the tree knows, but it doesn't really matter after all.